Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. And remember, there is no reality until the manifesting scientist creates it. That's what you do. You create your own reality, not by the guidance of some fictitious God form or information or guidance from the weak and need society, your teachers, your parents, other people that will guide you to the path of destruction. Remember, there is no reality until you create it by using the techniques and the technologies that off-world tech provides. Okay, moving into something here. As I've been researching certain things, and particularly the well-known pioneer in metaphysics from the 70s, which is very typical of 70 type stuff, Christopher Hills. Who was very heavily involved in dowsing, radionics, and other things in the 70s, and unfortunately didn't take it too many places, and oddly enough, obtained a virus, apparently, so is stated, in Vietnam, that while he was researching different types of water there, which I was assuming he was going to be using for his spirulina farms. Spirulina, I guess is the correct way to pronounce it, obtained a virus that ultimately killed him. But the discovery of spirulina, this basically this type of, is it a fungus technically, that grows on from sunlight, which was very highly researched by the Japanese for many years, and where he opened up different spirulina, the green stuff, and had a giant, apparently, production facility in Southern California in Desert Hot Springs, a place that I used to go to frequently or drive by, is interesting. One of the problems with all these things is the fact that spirulina, along with several other things, they say the same thing about Morgana, or which is a famous thing now, which I've tried a lot of as well. Now, these are super high in protein, and probably the highest protein item that is out there is spirulina, with a lot of trace minerals. So it is 70% protein, which is quite fascinating. It also it has to be grown very carefully, and you have to make sure everything is done properly, and you're using areas that are protected and can grow this. It's algae. I'm sorry. It's algae properly, because the oceans are giant sewers. So you got to be very careful. So getting high quality spirulina is something you have to look at. And I've been investigating all this, but and also, while they are very high in protein and very high in nutrients, you have to take an awful lot of it. Like so many other things out there that are very high in this, it's not like you're going to take one tablet and that's going to be enough. You have to take quite a bit. And 100 grams of something is quite a bit. This is what I use to make herbal tinctures with, and you pour that in a sun jug that's usually is a few gallons, and you then add alcohol to it, so you can extract what's in there. And I wonder how that would work with spirulina. Would be interesting. Now, it's you can find inexpensive spirulina, but you have to be very careful, as I said, and there's the usual problems you run into all these things. But in this book here that Christopher Hills wrote during the popularity of what he was bringing to the public, he didn't discover it. It was out there. It's not like something that he figured out, but he ran into this in his travels and was a big pusher of this. But it's always the same thing, that when you look into people's lives, you tend to be very disappointed. But this is a very interesting book. You can find this on Amazon. It's still available there. I looked at it recently. Rejuvenating the Body Through Fasting with Spirulina Plankton. So I guess it's ultimately a plankton. Excuse me. That, of course, that's what whales have always lived on, this plankton. And It is fascinating because of its high content of actual protein. Now he goes and tells you on how to use this. There are a few pages on how to use this. I'll probably post this someplace. As I said, you can buy this book. I'll probably have a link down below where you can get a few pages of how to do a fast with this. But this is a great way, and you know, I'm amazed by the big things that are going on right now. Is the fact that fasting everybody's talking about. When it really comes down to health and everything else, which is very, very confusing, they like to use the term now intermittent fasting, which means you eat 8 hours of the day and the rest of the day, or even 6 hours, and the rest of the day you're not eating anything. Very fascinating. And of course, fasting is coming back big again in general. Now, this is nothing new. Fasting has been one of the major health things that have been around forever. And fasting is something you do when you're doing metaphysical things to purify the mind and soul. So fasting has always been big. And the bottom line is your body, as much as we're always told, eat this, do that, this is a horrible trap that we've all got into. Nobody, you get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and let's say you get up at 7. Oh, it's lunchtime. It's 11 or 12. Really? Are you hungry after you ate a breakfast, supposedly? And then, of course, you're going to have to, after you eat at 12 or 1 o'clock, you're going to eat dinner, what, at 6, 7? Your body needs that? Well, it's ridiculous. Breakfast is something that is very new in society. And again, these are created as marketing gimmicks to get you to eat and buy products. And of course, eating is something that is very profitable. Is it profit for companies? But it's not necessarily profitable for you, or good for you, I should say. So we're all accustomed to constantly eating. Food is in our face all the time. There are fast food joints, and I'm glad all these things are kind of coming to a hilt now, that they're too expensive now that people don't even bother with it. I mean, fast food used to be cheap and pretty good. Now it's expensive and really bad. And the more and more toxins that are in everything, of course, is what is a really problem. And these fast food companies decide to poison you. So supporting them is a really sad and stupid thing to do. I always used to, I should say most of the time, used to take my own foods. I wouldn't go out at lunch with the other numbnuts and buy stuff that is no good for you. And of course, you can't be influenced by all the stooges out there that want to tell you everything in the name of Jesus. So the whole idea is all these things are nonsense. So the whole idea is that we have to move into understanding how the body works, etc. So the less you eat, generally, the better. And of course, you want to try and eat, as it's always really been the case, you want to try and eat high protein items that you can. And of course, one of those that seems to be really good for you is spirulina. It's a plankton, it's an algae. It is something that is energized with light. It grows on the top, oftentimes, of ponds. And this is able to be then scooped up. And of course, it's heavily light driven. And of course, the water and everything else with it. So it's pretty fascinating. And it's something that everyone should re-examine. Now, good spirulina is something that you have to be careful with. Now, I've looked at the different brands, and of course, getting them in a powder, and it doesn't taste very good. Spirulina generally has a very, because it's grown usually in salt water, has a very fishy flavor to it in general. So putting it in a powder and taking it as a shake with other things is generally not going to be a good way to do it. And if something doesn't taste good, isn't convenient, you're never going to do it. Doesn't matter how good for you. I do this all the time. Well, I'll buy it in the best way I can. Oh, it tastes bad. Throw it in the trash. So you're never going to do it. Is that smart? Well, you have to be careful. And I've noticed that this particular stuff is made in a particular powder, pressed into little tablets, so to speak. Pellets, as they like to call it. Now, the problem is usually when you do that, you're using a lot of heat to process it. Now, anytime you process anything, you start destroying it. And if you process it enough, it's completely destroyed and has no value whatsoever. So we have to be careful. So most of them are pressing them into pellets. Now, I don't know if they're doing this in the cold manner or not. I'm not really sure. Now, there are companies that make this, and of course, his company, I believe, is still selling his products. Now, how well it's made, I don't know. It's hard to say with all this stuff. Once the main person steps away from something, the credibility usually goes down. He's been dead for many, many years, and I'm not sure who's running his organizations, but his actual products tend to be very expensive, and that doesn't mean that they're good. I don't trust anybody. The point is, when you press them into these little tablet type things, it can be a problem. I did see one company that is making them and putting them in capsules. Now, this makes sense as well because there's no heat involved. You're putting them in a typical capsule that you would use for any type of supplement, which is pretty good. So it means you take this, it opens up in your stomach. There is no processing of the ingredients. They go from the ingredient into the capsule, and then they go into a bottle. And I always recommend people, if at all possible, try to get something that's in glass, or at the very least, some I notice are making them, putting them in little tin containers. Those are okay as well. But everything's lined with plastic. The first thing I do with anything I buy is I take it out of the plastic and I put it in glass bottles. You can buy glass bottles very inexpensively, glass jars, etc. I use the type that have rubber seals where you then can seal them down. This keeps the product very very fresh, even after years of some things I've had, which I'm shocked with. So you always want to take it because everything, no matter what you get, is lined with plastic. So if you buy a frozen dinner or something, even though it may be healthy and relatively pure, it's lined with plastic. So the first thing you want to do there is when you bring it home, is you pop it out of that container, put it in another container. I use a lot of stainless steel and I use a lot of glass. Stainless steel is really nice because of the fact that it don't breaky. I break all the glass stuff all the time, so it is a problem. But all these little things are just what you got to do in this day and age to do things right. You spend a lot of money for this stuff. Make sure that it is in good condition. Now, first of all, here's some actual pressed together tablets. Now, the other thing you'll find is you find that chlorella is also added with spirulina. The bottom line is that you don't want to use chlorella. Per the information on it, it is hard to digest. It doesn't digest anywhere near the level that spirulina does. So stay away from the combinations. Just get pure spirulina. You don't need both. Spirulina is the superfood, and that's all you need. So they look like this, and you're going to get different varieties of these, quote, pellets. Now, again, most tablet making is pressed together using heat. And this, again, is harder to digest. So you don't want it pressed together if you can. Using the powder is always the best way to go and usually the cheapest. Most supplements, if you buy them powdered, are very inexpensive, but they are a pain to use, especially if you want to grab something. So, and of course, there's taste and everything else, but making some sort of a concoction 2 or 3 times a day is probably the way to go using powders. I take the powders out of the bags, I put them in metal bottles, and then I scoop them in. It's just something you have to get used to. But I also use a lot of tablets, and I do prefer to get as many things as possible in a liquid form. This gets into your system the best. Now, it doesn't matter what you take. What matters is what you absorb, and people are absorbing very little, and that's the big problem. You got to absorb it, or it's meaningless. So if your body doesn't use it, what you've done is you're just going to eliminate it, and that's not the point. So that's why it's important to try and do some research, try and find out what is best for you anytime you use liquids. If it is assimilable, a liquid is the best way to go. Liquid sprays, etc. Anything, and that's why, of course, you want to take a powder, make it into a liquid, and then drink it that way because you get the effects of that. It goes into your stomach and is easily bioavailable depending on what it is. But chlorella, per Christopher Hills, is something that has a poor assimilability. You have trouble assimilating it within your body. So why bother with it? You don't need both. But if you fast and you're just taking spirulina a few times a day, and he lays out how to take it, how many tablets, etc. This is very typical coming from the 70s. People used to do all kinds of juice fasts. Now, the problem with juices is that you are getting a large amount of fructose, and fruit juices generally are all not that great for you. Vegetable juices are a better way to go. The big fad now is celery, and I don't see anything wrong with that. You certainly could do that as well. You can fast and just drink some water. Some people are no longer eating or drinking either. Having a hot fast, as they call it, is something that's been done for generations as well, where you don't take any liquids in. But be careful with all this stuff. Drinking water in particular, certainly I see no problem with a fast. And even taking a little bit, especially as you get into all this stuff, why make it so hard? So taking in pure organic vegetable juices, particularly the fad of celery juice, is certainly a way to go. And remember, everybody is sick. Everybody has problems. So when you try and do something, your reactions could be bad. So go slow. Very, very slow. Small amounts. There's no use doing something healthy for you that makes you sicker. And of course, as you eliminate toxins and everything else, people tend to feel bad. This is normal to a degree. Also, remember, we're fighting on many fronts. First of all, everybody's got horrible parasites in them. And one of the other things to add into this wonderful mix is you're full of toxic metals. You're full of lead. You're full of mercury. You're full of Teflon. So all the things that get into your bodies that you're full of. It's very scary, unfortunately. So you do want to go slowly and be careful. The other things you have problems with, of course, is the inevitable out there that is viruses, which I've eliminated most of those from my body. But so there are other things. But these heavy metals, which seem to be pandemic in almost everything you buy and eat, including all these supplements. I still see they're trying to push all this pure cocoa out there. And they all say how they're organic. They're grown in organic farms. Nobody says they're tested for heavy metals. Particularly West Africa uses leaded fuel, and all that lead, and this is one of the problems. Where does the lead come from, Dr. Thor? A lot of it is up in the atmosphere, and then it rains down, and then guess what? You are what your animals and plants eat. There's a whole book that stated with that. Nobody seemed to be very interested in that. I've taken that video down. It's really sad. So the whole idea is you are what your animals eat. So whatever you eat and what your plants eat. So that you're eating. So, the whole area of all these things. But for a rejuvenating body fast, incorporating spirulina, which has all these micronutrients and everything else in it, is quite interesting. So it makes sense that this would be a great purifier. And when you're going through a fast and you're not eating solid foods, to get the nutrients as well is something. But I think everyone should incorporate spirulina. And like everything else in life, you have to eat less and spend more. I know that this is counterintuitive, but that's not how life really is. Eat less, spend more. And the problem is we can't even trust anything that's organic or anything else. You want to try and buy organic, but most of those foods are not organic. And the problems that go with it. Unless you have a high level of regulatory people checking everything, it's never done correctly. All of us don't want government involved in anything, but the bottom line is government, which unfortunately corrupts and makes processes and many times worse. The fact is, if you let society, based on their great principles, their great honor, their great belief systems, they'll serve you garbage that will kill you, and as simple as that. So we have real problems. Everything needs to be highly regulated in terms of what it is. So all these organic people should be checked constantly and made sure that what they are producing is reality, because basically it's fraud, and we already have this with supplements. While the FDA is not required or to actually test supplements, there is a crime involved that if it says 100% of whatever herb or spirulina and it's tested and it doesn't have any of it in there or a small amount of it, this is fraud. And this is happening everywhere because they can steal from you, and they will. That's the nature of human beings. So the whole idea is this is really sad, and nobody has any credibility. All anybody cares about is the buckaroos, and that's how life is. So what you want to try and do is at least find people that are stating that. So as I said, looking into cocoa, which is supposed to be so good for you, with what comes from the raw plant, not candy bars, none of them stated they were heavy metal free, yet they were organic. Well, what does that mean? It means pure lead. How nice. I'm glad that it's not adulterated lead. It's pure lead. Thank you. So this is what you run into. So it is something like everything that you take as a supplement. Try and find companies that are legitimate. Since there is no testing of this stuff, look for tests. Look for these people are saying. Of course, you can't even trust that because all of these tests certainly can be doctored and cheated upon, etc. So you go on with the problem. Is there any credibility? And of course, we always want to get the cheapest brand of something. Remember, that generally means it's, again, cut and it's junk. So you're not really saving money, you're not getting the benefits, and you're losing money because you're just getting garbage. So we all have to be very careful with that. That's the reality of it. So, but using spirulina, if you get a good quality of it and you get a legit product, there seems to be people making it in Hawaii that seem to be good, people that talk about how they have special batches and they're trying. Well, all we can do is trust them to a degree. Of course, you want to do some research on the net to find out, well, who's got the best spirulina at the best price? Because that's what you can always buy something that's cost a lot of money. Doesn't mean that it's better than anybody else or the process is going involved with it. People who have, I believe it was his son that also has, his grandson, that has a multi-level marketing. And unfortunately, Christopher Hills got into multi-level marketing in the 70s. I don't know if he was legit or not, but multi-level marketing, or mommy loves me, as I call it, because mommy's going to buy all the boxes of that garbage that nobody else wants because you're charging over retail for them. So any kind of multi-level marketing, I believe, should be legal. And I'm not surprised that the Hills family would get involved in that kind of shady dealing. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like they're all too reputable. And it's very strange. Not only will they not reprint any of Hill's books, and his second wife is kind of a very odd artist type woman. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. I looked her up recently, quite younger than he was, and very much into unusual artistic practices with a great erotic theme with them. Which certainly isn't anything wrong with it, but she's certainly not carrying on her husband's work. If you don't keep somebody's books in print, and I was told by his grandson that she was the problem, why she wouldn't want to make more money in a time where it's very easy to publish stuff. There's no investment. All they'd have to do is put some money together to get everything into a PDF so they can then sell it online. Because getting any of Hill's books, now as I said, this one seems to be hanging around out there that you can grab. So do look on Amazon for it or check in used books. But most of his books are very expensive because they're all out of print. Um, which is really sad. But this is very, very typical, and this went on for years. And I tried to save a lot of books that went out of print because once they go out of print, nobody benefits from it. Certainly, you're not hurting the author when you reprint stuff, especially when they die, because we'll never see it again. The only people that make money from a used book is the used book dealer. Not a penny of that goes to the author or anybody else. So everybody loses that way except for the used book dealer, who really is making money off of reselling something anyway. So the whole idea is that we have to understand that as the bigger process. But none of the books are in print. There doesn't seem to be any of that. It's really a shame because there's some good information in it, even though it's kind of dated. So he put together a relatively good business structure, but when you die, most everything falls apart. And certainly from what I can tell from his wife, who's much younger than him, that she wasn't really into anything as much as he was. So she got into her little artistic stuff. The rich can play like that, and I'm assuming he left a lot of money to her. So when you're rich, you can be the artist. And this is so typical of so many women who marry rich men, and then what do? They play. They become artists, they get into music, etc. All of these things go on, and they do not carry through giving them the money to do it, especially if their husbands are gone. That seems to be the case there, but who knows? I'm not going to spend that much time investigating that, but certainly none of his books or products or anything else. His corporation making Spirulina was taken over by another company, and they, I believe, are still making stuff. But I wouldn't get involved. Just find a credible supplier of this. Stay away from any multi-marketing cons. And as I said, as long as they're doing it in a credible manner, that's what you want. It's not about paying the highest price. It's about getting the best value for quality. So adding this into a fast seems to me to make a lot of sense. As I said, you're getting these, and the one thing nice about nutrients and other things, it also tends to cleanse the body. So if you do a fast and you don't also use stimulants to a degree, or things that help cleanse the body out, then the body is working on its own, and this makes the process less effective. So taking something that has a lot of nutrients that can help the body work better without being physical foods is certainly a way to go. So that's something that everybody should consider. We do have to understand, though, that like with everything, and this is always the problem I run into with anyone, is that he died young, and his Spirulina, the greatest thing that make everybody wonderful that he made terrible claims with, and the state of California went out and fined him for that, didn't save him. So he got sick, he returned to America from Vietnam, and died, I believe, in Northern California, that Colorado, was it Colorado Springs or whatever? I always get that confused. But the point is that it was actually in California. I said it was in Colorado. But the whole idea, he apparently died up at his property there. And so it didn't save him. He didn't go on a Spirulina fast and kick the virus out that worked so well. His radionics failed. His dowsing failed. And he died at a younger age. I think he was 71 or whatever. It really doesn't matter. He didn't live to be 80s, 90s, etc., which all this stuff should do. So this is always the problem I have with everyone. What does it actually do? And as I've mentioned in some of my other videos, if you trace all the people, and there's a guy who's done this, of all the people that came out with these diets, not any of them, and I shouldn't say not any, I don't remember all of them, but most of them did not live even to the normal age expectancy, which at this particular time, meaning just throwing everybody together, is about 77. If we add in people that take care of themselves and everything else, you should be in your mid 80s to pushing 90. So if you've got all the great nutrition, you haven't been stressed out in life, and you can afford better diets and everything else, there's no reason why you can't live to be your middle to late 80s. And that depends on your own personal genetics and everything else. So I don't know what his family genetics was, but he certainly took care of himself. He had lots of money, lots of support, knew all the big shots, had radionic and homeopathic machines, was using dowsing and everything else. So I don't know. I don't know what his family is. The reason I got into a lot of this stuff is because I have never been healthy until actually recently. I'm at the best health in my life right now, but I grew up with a very sick mother who had lupus, and I personally had chronic fatigue and so many other things that, as a young person, I could barely function. I was able to conquer this through many different areas of nutrition and other things that I've done, and using technologies, etc., to reach a certain level. Now, what this means in the bigger picture, who knows in terms of life expectancy. Frankly, I didn't think I would make it to 50, but I'm doing fairly well. Would still have some problems I need to work on. But that should be expected when you have a bad DNA, and that's the problem. So we do have to judge it. If you have a bad DNA and you don't have the golden spoon in your mouth like Hills did, with all the supporters, all the money, everything else. I mean, he was great friends with George de la Warr, the British radionic expert who claimed to do so many things. He was sent all of his paperwork, or at least most of it, from his research and machines and everything else. He built his own, etc., on top of having all of this. So that couldn't save him. He gets a bad virus in Vietnam, comes home, and dies within a year. He should have been able to save himself because he didn't die instantly. He didn't die within months, but he did die relatively quickly after they claim this happened to him. That also sounds like a far-fetched story to me. There may be some things else involved in this. Who really knows? You can't trust anybody. But what's worse is when people like this, and this is just not the average Joe, this is a guy who's very wealthy, who has lots of, you're talking about, he knew everybody, including all the yogis in India and everything else, the Tibetans, yet he got no help from them or sought no help. Nobody could heal him, not all the yogi mogis, the great Tibetans, of course, who I'm still trying to find out what the hell have the Tibetans ever done. Can't figure it out. So the whole idea is, other than run from their country because they couldn't hold on to it, so what have they ever done? So certainly they didn't help him. He knew all of the Indian practitioners, the yogic thing that he said was so wonderful that he practiced, who have particular healers and diets and everything else that they're on. None of that helped him. And that really bothers me, because when I do research, the first thing I look at is, who is the individual? What culture does he come from? What is his background? What is his belief systems? I think this highly colors what these people do and their outcomes. So if you're a person who has a strong bias or a strong belief system, this is going to affect what you're doing. And I always find this from people that they put into their work their own personal prejudices. So you're never going to get away from those Christians who always end whatever they do with something about Jesus, or what Rodin did with his book on his coil. The fact of the last third of his book on his coil was talking about the Baha'i religion that he was involved with. Apparently, he was married to a wealthy woman. She was Baha'i, and he jumped into that and said how wonderful it was. Here we go again. So, those kind of things should be separate from the data, the hard reality of whatever product you're making. A coil's a coil. So the whole idea, if that coil works, the religious aspects of everything should not be brought into the hard, cold facts of whether it works or not. This is a delusional belief system. So you have to be very careful. So the whole idea is, we just don't know with all this stuff. His history isn't good. Oh, and the topper with Hills, which I will leave you with, is that his wife that is still surviving today, because she was much younger than him, he had a first wife, and his first wife died. And this is when he was involved with everything, involved with the radionics, involved with spirulina, all of that stuff. His first wife died from, I'm trying to remember what disease that was now. It wasn't cancer, but it was a popular disease of this time. I think it was Parkinson's disease or some other. And of course, it was Boulder Creek, California. I always get Boulder confused with Boulder, Colorado. But that's where he had his little institute. People have commented that that was a tiny little institute and that Hills was a typical kind of nasty Brit. I don't know. He did do a lot of good work. He worked with good people. But you're on your own, Chris. None of your little Tibetans, all the Indians that had that, all the radionic people, all the homeopathic people, let you die. And I think this is a big statement we should all learn from. You're on your own, buddy. And of course, we want to always look into alternatives because what the regular society pushes on you is usually garbage that is more likely to kill you than it is to help you. But it's sad that a guy with all his connections and everything else would die from some virus he picked up in Vietnam when looking for pure water that was there, pure carbonated water that a natural spring would have there, and nothing else was talked about that. But the bottom line, it's really, really sad. With all the people he knew, all the yogis, all the yogic that he practiced, even his Christian belief systems, all the Westerners with their radionics and their homeopathy failed him. And we have to look at this, and these are things that I always look at, because who out there really has the answer? Now, a lot of this stuff does work, not to put it all down, but does it work for you? And in the end, if it doesn't work for you, and you bite the big one, well, that's the problem. So never go into believing what other people want to tell you and sell you for profit, that it works. We've already had this happen with the toxicity brought into the radionic industry, which is now ran by Satanists who will feed you toxic poison called organite that they put into their machines that literally kill you. And of course, nobody knows anything about this. And of course, the cowardice-controlled people in the industry, particularly those running organizations in the UK and the United States, who are heavily corrupt and have no idea what they're talking about. And that includes authors and other things. Buyer beware. But beware in general. Don't believe anything that people are telling you just on the faith of it. Are they credible? I got into making and producing technologies because I couldn't find anything that's good. And watch for my Spooky 2 test to come up soon. I'm going to try out that particular. So the whole tool that's out there that everybody talks about how great it is, yes and no. But the bottom line is that beware. There are credible people and non-credible people, but I haven't met any credible people other than myself, which is why I produce things like this as well. So keep that in mind, and remember, people, I'm going to put a little passage of how to do a fast here. There's a few pages within this book. If you are interested, you can find this online to get the whole information on it. I think it's pretty fascinating on spirulina, and it's very important to know that chlorella is something not to take. And this is mixed with spirulina. Stay away from that. Don't get the mixtures, and this is not easily assimilated, to kind of recap everything. So do look for that. There'll be a link down below where you can download that free, just as there's a Magnetron free link for that particular pattern that he came up with. And remember, he did a lot of work from the 1970s, and most of the stuff that Christopher Hills made was mediocre at best. The tools were made nice and everything else, but they did not produce great effects. Plain and simple, just like the magnetron doesn't create great effects. These are nice little tools, and that's that. But remember, there's certainly nothing that came out great from him, and we know it itself, because whatever he did produce, whatever he did know, didn't work, and it cost him his life. Until next time, and remember, there is no reality until the manifesting scientist creates it. Go out and create your own reality. Make sure you're working from high consciousness. And as I always say, find out what doesn't work, because that means you're closer to finding out what does work. Until next time.